This Day in Sports History. Hey, and welcome back to another edition of This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. You can find more info and more podcasts at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's December 11th, and on this day in 1938, it was a battle for supremacy in a relatively new NFL. The 38 championship game was between the Packers and the Giants at New York's Polo Grounds. 48,000 people piled in to watch it, and this one turned out to be a brutal game. Football played in the 30s was a good bit different than today's game. Not only was the equipment not really that protective, like leather helmets which were glorified skull caps and no face masks, but the players were a little bit tougher. In this game, you had a Giants offensive lineman knocked out of the game with a spinal concussion. Another guy had his sternum cracked, but he came back later. Leland Schaefer fractured his leg, but he decided to stay in the game, and Giants center Mel Hine broke his nose and, by all indications, also suffered a concussion, but he kept on playing. Also, the Giants of the 30s were a pretty innovative team. Coach Steve Owen, who we've talked about here on This Day in Sports History, specifically the sneakers game from a few days back, actually used a different squad of players for offense and defense, as opposed to players playing both ways. He innovated pulling offensive linemen and stunting defensive linemen, and blitzing a safety when blitzing wasn't even part of the football vernacular yet. The Giants got on the board first in this one thanks to a couple of plays by Jim Lee Howell. He blocked one punt to set up the game's first points on a field goal. He then recovered the ball after another blocked punt to set up a touchdown that gave New York an early 9-0 lead. Hine, playing with his broken nose, recovered another fumble that New York converted into more points. But a couple of Packer touchdowns made it 16-14 Giants at the half. Green Bay scored the only points in the third quarter, putting a field goal on the board and led 17-16 in the fourth. Enter Hank Soar. Soar took handoff after handoff and barreled through the line on a long, sustained drive down the field to the Packers' 23. On the next play, Giant quarterback Ed Donowski saw Soar was double covered, but still decided to throw it to him. And to the amazement of many in the stands that day, Soar made the catch, and then he dragged Packer Clark Hinkle like an annoying little brother the final 5 yards into the end zone. After the PAT, it was 23-17 Giants. There was still plenty of time remaining for Green Bay to retake the lead, but they had trouble hanging on to the football. New York intercepted a ball inside their own 30 to snuff one drive, and then forced and recovered a fumble to stifle another. On their final possession, Green Bay simply ran out of time, and the Giants were world champs. New York became the first team in the NFL to win multiple times and were the NFL's original dynasty. In the 1930s, they played in 5 championship games and won 2 of them. So from a dynasty, we go to a struggling franchise. On this day in 1977, the Tampa Bay Buccaneerrs won their first ever game. If you're a fan of the show, then you know that 7 days ago I talked about the Bucs losing their 26th consecutive game. They'd won a preseason game, but to this point in year 2, they had yet to win a regular season game. On this day, they were playing Hank Stram's New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. The Saints weren't exactly lighting the league on fire. They'd only won 3 games at this point in '77, but still, they were 11-point favorites over the hapless Buccaneers, especially playing at home. This game was ugly. Saints quarterback Archie Manning fumbled on the opening drive. The Bucs recovered, ran a couple of plays, and then missed a field goal. Neither team could muster much offense. Tampa finally managed a field goal later in the quarter to make it 3-0. After another Manning turnover, the Bucs kicked another field goal. Manning was not having any fun. 2 turnovers in the first half, and when he wasn't giving the ball away, he was getting sacked.
First and 10, New Orleans at their 26-yard line, and Archie Manning wants to put it up. Big rush, and down he goes. Leroy Selman, with 10 quarterback sacks coming into this ballgame, racks up number 11 on a spectacular sack.
Tampa was able to find the end zone before the end of the half.
Is 5 out of 6. He's had an excellent first half. And Huff is going to throw it again. Floats it out. Corner of the end zone. Touchdown! Morris Owens pulls it down in a corner of the end zone.
That Gary Huff to Morris Owens connection made it 13-0 Bucks at the break. The Saints' offense was sputtering so badly that Stram benched Manning and put Bobby Scott in the game. Things did not get any better.
Muncie and Galbraith's a setback. Scott throwing. Intercepted! That could be an easy 6 points. Touchdown! Mike Washington!
Mike Washington's pick six was the first ever interception return for a touchdown in franchise history. And at that point, Saints fans began to reconsider their life choices. Scott had another pass picked in the third quarter, and then he threw another pick six at the start of the fourth quarter. Manning came back in and actually scored a touchdown to prevent the shutout. But then he threw the third pick six of the game in the end zone after having his pass blocked into the hands of Greg Johnson. Tampa Bay broke their losing streak with 3 defensive touchdowns to win 33-14. A franchise first for the Bucks, but a franchise worst for the Saints. New Orleans safety Tom Myers said after the game, "We've been made the laughingstocks. I'm too embarrassed to say that I play for the team that got beat by Tampa Bay." Hank Stram said, "This was my worst coaching experience." He didn't last much longer. After losing again the next week, Stram was fired. Tampa would actually build on their success from this one and win again the following week, closing out their schedule with a 17-7 win over St. Louis. On this day in 1985, the Edmonton Oilers and the Chicago Blackhawks combined to score the most goals in a game in the modern hockey era. The Oilers were the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champs playing on the Blackhawks' home ice. Chicago had a little revenge on their minds after being bounced from the playoffs in the conference finals the previous year by Edmonton. But any hopes of that were dashed pretty early. The Oilers scored 4 goals in the first period, and the Blackhawks went to the locker room at the first intermission under a shower of boos from their disgruntled fans. Now, if you like offensive hockey with lots of goals scored and a maestro like Wayne Gretzky orchestrating the action, then the second period was about as good as it gets. The teams combined to score an NHL record-tying 12 goals in the period. Chicago did claw back to within 2 at one point, but an Oilers surge at the end of the period led to a 10-6 lead at the second intermission. Each team added 3 goals in the third, and when the horn sounded at the end of the game, Edmonton had beaten the Blackhawks 12-9. 2 Oilers, Yari Curry and Glenn Anderson, finished with hat tricks, and while he didn't score a goal, Gretzky assisted 7 on the night. The 21 goals in the game topped the record of 20 that the Oilers and Minnesota North Stars had set just a year before when Edmonton won that game 12-8. Also on this day in sports history, the end of the line for 2 sports icons. In 1981, Muhammad Ali fought his last fight, losing in a 10-round decision to Trevor Berbick. And in 1951, Jolton Joe DiMaggio retired from baseball after a 13-year career. Time now for today's Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. The Ferris wheel debuted at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. The original had 36 cars, which could hold a total of 60 people each. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.